things. We have the strength to go up on the stage and we have the courage to go out there and sing out the truth for the right song. But when it comes to being in the temple, being here to worship, we mouth that's what good works. Not even say a good morning that the sister passed. Did you know fear is the passion killer? How? With fear, I said, but sister, I can't do that. Sister, I know what I can do, but I can't do it. Sister, I have this, I have that. I will make up all sorts of excuses from now till God comes. But we still have the passion. It's there. It's there. We're not supposed to sit on our passion to say, oh, life is hard. But we still have the passion. It's sit on our life is hard. Put him up here. Brother Kiwi said, but I'm not practice no song. I don't know. Sister, how you could do that to me? I can't do this. I can't do that. Sister, I'm afraid. I'm not going to do it again. Sister, call Sister Bell to sing for me instead. No, that's not how it works. We're in charge of our own faith. We can't just say, oh, sister, I want to pray for me. Sister, I want to pray for me. I want to sick my daughter or my son. He's sick. I want to pray for me. But not once. I want to go down on the knees and pray and spend the time with the Lord and seek his face. Not at all. Guard the vessel, living pure in a polluted world. After the world that polluted, man, we can't well walk and smooth foot is polluted in the spirit realm. All these devils and demons passing around. Oh, it's just a normal thing. Wait, I'm a girl, but I also like this girl. What does that mean? And the LGBTQIAXZ, whatever, plus, come in and say, oh, that's fine. Find your identity. Do this, do that. And it has all been normalized. You realize that everything that is against the word of God has been normalized and has been accepted. But anytime we go inside the schools, so we sit down, it's time for a test. We say a little prayer, we sing. And what does you do? You never need studying. Or the don't realize that God helps you with your studying as well. You just say, God, show me how to study. Open the book. You start studying. 1 plus 1, 2. Alright then. Me get that. Next morning for the exam. Wait. And this we study last night. 1 plus 1, 2. I get it. And everyone could understand the concept. But God shows us. He said he is with us wherever we go. He is with us when we are asleep, when we are eating. All we would even realize he's there. What is purity? What is purity? Purity is more than just abstaining from the sin, especially sexual sins and the lust of the flesh. What is it about though? It's about the condition of your heart. The sin, especially sexual sins and the lust of the flesh. About though. Here. I don't know what's in here. Money, drugs, thieving. That is what is in your heart. But what's in my heart? The things of God. What I can do for God. How to really give God my time. None of that nobody have these days in this 2025 era. It's about the condition of what you do, what you say, your motives, your thoughts, every little thing you think about. You pass the sister. Sister, you're looking nice today. What's in your mind? She can't go on. Look on the skirt. It's too short. What that you have on? But you will never lend a helping hand and say, sister, what is skirt? Or sister, you know, some have some clothes. Why not just check it out? Come on, let me give you a little something. No. We're always so quick to judge and to belittle one another. Never are we there to give a helping hand and to say, sister, you okay? Sister, what's going on? Even to drop by and say, sister, you know, so the Lord asked me to come to see what you're going on with. Sister, you know, some have financial issues. Look up, my son, he need to go school. I'm not gonna get school fee, uniform that they will start out yet. And don't even get me started on the book list. Purity is clean motives, honest intentions, not just for come up here and sing a song and not one time look inside of the congregation, find a friendly face, look in their eyes, and to say, some sweet name, I'm going away, and look in their eyes. But this is what we're doing. Some sweet name, I'm going away. From this world. I'm going to cover our face when the camera comes near. We are to live holy, to be holy. We are to strive unto perfection. But sister, after I'm not perfect, we are to be perfect. We are to strive for perfection. Not just to say, sister, after I'm not perfect, I can't do this, I can't do that. But God said we are to be holy as He is holy. God desires us to be pure, not just in our actions, but in the way we think. Because what we think becomes what we do. You say, oh, we might just do a little thing. Make me pray tonight. Then they call, who wants to pray? And they could have called and called to them. When I raise my hand, say, yes, sister, I'll pray tonight. It's fear. Fear grips us, and we don't even realize anxiety. These things that get into our head and say, no, you can't do this. What do you mean you want to go there and sing? I bet you go sit down. Us as youths, we are to be like Joshua. What was Joshua given to do? Look at the big task. He was to lead the Israelites into the promised land. That's just something you can do. He said, oh, no, just go to Joshua real quick and sweat off. That's not how easy it is. We are to walk in His will and His way, not looking to the left nor to the right, but to look in front of us, that every which way we tread upon, it will be given unto us. We are to run the last leg of the race, and not only to just run it with confidence, run it with strength. Give your all. We come, we just sit down. And what time? Pastor, have a word. Don't get tired of me. We are to run the last leg of the race. We're not just supposed to sit down and say, boy, sister, I'm tired. Me just take back bench. My back hurt me. My foot hurt me. Knee rise attack me. We're to run, and we're to run to the finish line, to go and say, yes, I've done what I need to do for the Lord, and to go into His will and His purpose. We're not only to lead, we are to lead by example, like Joshua. Look at the task Joshua was given. Joshua was given a hefty task, big shoes to fill, especially after Moses' legacy. Him part Red Sea, him do this, him do that, plague over Egypt. Well, what is that is? After we carry that, God already has His purpose, His will, His way for you. Just because Brother Kiwayne can sing doesn't mean you can sing, but at least you can pray. Just because she can pray, don't mean you can pray good, but you can pray. But you can also come up here and give the sermon. No, you see, I don't really know what I'm doing, but it's by God's strength and by courage that I'm up here. Because I'm otherwise minded at times. I could be sitting down like you, looking up, wondering why, and when it have a burn, it's so done. And when it have a burn, no watch clock. At what time? Why do I have this and that to do when I reach home? And then once we reach home, that's one thing we not do. We sit down in our bed, we scroll through TikTok. Oh, Rosalie and Akeem. I wonder what is up to next. Let me follow up on this. I watch Passa next. The next report. And this happened. And we follow up every single thing that distracts us from the will and the purpose of God. But see the Bible here, right how nice stand, and we'll scroll, not even on it. Let me scroll, let me see what's happening next. What is happening in the world, not what's happening in the word. But God really wants us to bring out that passion, to say, all right, I can do it. For the Lord, I will do it. And even in BBS, the teacher was saying, when my son here, I'm afraid, but must still do it. God said we are going to be scared, even though He has not given us a spirit of fear. He didn't say we aren't going to be scared. We're not going to feel puny. We're not going to feel inadequate. But He said, do it same way. Channel your passion into your calling. Do what God told you to do. Be strong and have a good courage. Be not afraid, neither be thou dismayed. For the Lord thy God is with thee, whithersoever thou goest. These are my few words.
Yeah. Shall we bless the Lord? Shall we bless the Lord together and give God thanks for Sister Cushel Coleman as Paul said to Timothy, it was in your grandmother, it was in your mother, and you Sister Cushel, when I went to your grandmother, it is in your grandmother. Your mother and you will get the spirit, and we will assert the spirit. She's yeah. And I remember the time when Sister Minister was pregnant with Sister God to the mighty, and even when I he said, Adam, and call up the name where you hide for? Yeah. And God used your husband and our daughter. So put your hand together again. Yeah. And you see everything. Represent something. And others things. Not here. It is see a message. And the power story, the passion. You know, qualified Joshua passion, it is very great. I'm not doing it. You don't preach at birth here. This way of the one shall not depart. It is very great. I'm not doing it. You don't preach at birth here. This way of the one. And nothing to write. You're in the knowledge. The book of God. Some Bible school with Josiah. Until Josiah finally he would have become Israel. So don't forget that. You can't just have passion and not develop passion. Shall we bless the Lord? Shall we bless the Lord? Continue to worship God. Good year.